Really excited to have Shanelle Gabriel with us today. Shanelle is a poet, a singer, and a lupus warrior from Brooklyn, New York, who has performed around the world. And we're really glad that she could join us today. So I'm going to turn this over to Shanelle. You're muted.
Hello. Yes.
Hi.
It was a little shimmery. How are you doing? Thank you so much for having me. And hello, everyone. My name is Shanelle Gabriel. I'm here. I represent Brooklyn, New York, but I currently reside in New Jersey now, just a little bit over the water. And it's a blessing to be able to share my thoughts with you all. So I'm really quickly going to see if, I can share my screen. Perfect. Just go into this lovely little slideshow I want you all to be able to see, just to guide my conversation, because Lord knows I can talk, okay? I would be amiss if I didn't just say thank you so much to Lupus Foundation, all of the chapters. You all do such great work and important work with this, just with us, because I know for me, I definitely have gotten support when I was first diagnosed through you all. So with that said, I'm going to kick this off. I would be amiss if I didn't start this off just letting you all know this is a conversation. I am not a doctor. I'm not an expert. You are your own expert with your lupus. Like, that is the rule and regulation of all things. You are the expert on your body. I'm just going to share some things that have helped me. And I would be amiss if I didn't talk about like my diagnosis as a foundation of the conversation. So at the time of my diagnosis, I was a sophomore in college. I was just joined my sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, in school upstate New York. I was super active on campus. I was living what felt like my best life. My first time having a room to myself. I had all these siblings and I had a solo dorm. And I want to talk a little bit about vanity and how that played a role in that. So as a poet, it's the best way I know how to share my story. And if it wasn't for vanity in college, I don't know where I'd be. See, I was achy and sleepless with migraines all week. Still, I continued to keep on going. Class of 8 to 2:30, BSU meeting at 3, dance practice at 4. At 5, I have to uphold my student senate presidency. Sorority meets at 9, study from 10 to 3, 7 a.m. My day just rewinds, and that was just Monday. Parties, sneaking a few conversations with whatever new guy I was talking to. See, this is the marsala that makes up the stew of the average college student. I was no different in every organization. See, I was Black and somehow in charge of the Latin American Student Union. I mean, they asked. See, stress was like my best friend, and I thrived in confusion, ignoring the weight that increased on my shoulders by the tons. Mornings got harder. I attributed it to me aiming to go farther than the average sophomore. Joints were swollen and sore, must be from dance practice. They say excuses are the tools of the incompetent, and I was foolish to think I could be so negligent with my body and think that all these symptoms were somehow irrelevant. And it got so bad one day that I walked with a limp. So yeah, something was wrong, and I saw butterflies, not like the Mariah Carey or the Michael Jackson song, but a mark on my face. Didn't matter. The semester was over. I was home and back at my mom's place. Like I said, if it wasn't for vanity, I don't know where I'd be. I still had my symptoms, but I was simply glad to be home, getting ready to go out. Now, I had my cute outfit on, looking all nice and grown, went to comb my hair, and then I realized that several patches were not there. Vanity had me at the doctor the next day, said, "Doctor, I have some other complaints, but they can wait. Take care of this. Take care of the exterior like most people nowadays." And the doctor had this baffled look on his face, did some blood tests, put a hat on, and I went on my merry way. And a few weeks later, the doctor said, "Shanelle, have you ever heard of lupus?" I said no, and he proceeded to say that my immune system was too strong in attacking my own body, and much to my dismay, I had to figure out how I could fit this into my schedule Can you believe I still went to work that day? All for vanity. I refused to see that overworking myself so as not to appear ill to others could have eventually ended my many responsibilities early. Well, a few months later, my body, it made me rest because lupus, it's a disease that flares up in times of stress, and I was constantly pushing it as if fighting my humanness. Well, this machine, it broke down. Hospitalization and the possibility of death forced me to do less, but it put things in perspective, because life is about more than just meetings and deadlines. I'm not a millionaire. I only have one lifeline. And if it flatlines, I don't want to have any regrets. So I vow to live every day as if I have 24 hours left. I'm an artist, an alchemist, purifying myself every chance that I get. I've learned to accept experience as the past and the present as a gift. So for all the people that didn't see the sunrise this morning, you better enjoy it. Value your health and love life. No matter how many miles you go, don't confuse neutral with drive, and know that sometimes you have to bare your teeth in order to finally be able to smile. So my vanity will sustain me. God helped me to believe in me. Can't you see? Lupus can't hold me. I'm going to keep climbing walls like an ivy. Trying to stop me is in vain. Like an IV, tenacity flows through my bloodstream, and I'm reaching my goals no matter how hard it seems. Put God first, then myself, and then my family, because can't nobody love me if I don't love me. And being conceited, not cool, but nothing's wrong with a little bit of vanity, because me loving myself, well, that's the beginning of my testimony. Thank you for allowing me to share that poem with you all. That poem was a really hard poem to write at the time, just thinking about what it meant to have a diagnosis of lupus in that age, and that was back in 2006. So I have a couple years under my belt. And so it means a lot to me to be able to kind of have some of the help here, hopefully, that I didn't have as much of. I did do a lupus support group while I was in college, and it was helpful because I was the only person under the age of 40. So I was like, okay, at least I know I'll live to 40. But I definitely have met so many people in so many walks of life that can kind of attest to some of the things that I'm going to talk about really quickly with you all today. So in continuing the slide, so lupus came about in college, and that was a very hopeful and optimistic poem, but it was not easy. And I can imagine what a lot of you might be going through. Some of you it might be new to you, might have been newly diagnosed. Some of you are still dealing with it. And for me, it definitely slowed up a lot of things down. My friends were partying. I was always the most healthy one, the one that ate well, the one that did so many things. You know, I worked out in campus. I didn't gain the freshman 15. I was in the gym. And then I had this chronic illness, and it felt so much like my life changed. And you think about that, it takes a lot of people more than 3 to 4 years having active disease before finding an actual a doctor and being diagnosed. And I was blessed that it was a little shorter than that for me, but that didn't make that time any easier. And I think some of the things that makes it challenging to live with lupus, and we're going to talk a little bit about grief and grieving your life, was that I had this whole life change and no one could see it. Right? I didn't look sick. It, doesn't have a look next outside of the discoid or the malar rash. So, it was something new. When I was diagnosed, no one had it as far as I knew. I think Jay Dilla was the only person I knew that had it. And he was a MC, a producer that passed away. And so because it's systematic, my inside didn't match my outside. So when my friends wanted to hang out and I'd be like, I don't think I can make it, they took it personally. And that was something that was really challenging for me, where I'm like, no, I really want to hang with you. And they're like, you just don't want to hang. You don't want to be around me. So I couldn't really explain to people. And each case of lupus has its own personality. So while I might be a mild to moderate, somebody else is dealing with it differently. And so my friends would say, oh, I have a friend that had lupus and they were fine. So you're just faking it. And, having to deal with all of those kind of narratives that were around me, that made it really, really challenging. So You know, we think about what life with lupus was, to go from being a healthy adult, what felt like being a healthy young adult, to all of a sudden having 3 doctors that I had to follow up with, taking all this medication, treating an illness, but not having anyone really ask me if I'm okay. You know, am I all right in this? What is my emotions? What are my emotions doing? That was a lot to have to bear. And I can imagine, I don't want to speak for anybody. I'm going to just tell you my story. And just, you know, feel free to, if anything resounds in the chat, you know, the other side of it was I tried to kind of go, well, at least I don't have something like cancer, you know, it's just lupus. And I found a really amazing post on Instagram once, and it talked about this. And it was something that was passing around like, no, I don't. I have a terrible chronic illness that can possibly, may eventually kill me, right? Let's be real. Like this idea that this is I have to think about making my life extend, like thinking about living my life. I take medications, sometimes those used to cure certain types of cancer. And how many people have been cured of my illness? None. I do know people have been in remission, but you know, I'm still sitting here trying to figure out how to deal with my lupus, right? And my illness might not be cured. It might not go in full remission, but I can manage and monitor it along with my pains that can worsen. All of these things, right, are the things that were the narratives that I had in my head and sometimes have to this day. And I won't act like everything is always perfect. It's still something that is a process. But imagine, like, these are all of the things going on beneath the surface after getting a diagnosis. So, you know, at the end of the day, I started to look at the stages of grief and mourning and saw so many parallels to what I went through. And I want to take you through them because I believe it's really helpful for you to also understand what you're feeling. Because sometimes I think we don't always analyze our feelings. There's denial and isolation. There's anger. There's bargaining. There's depression. And hopefully there's acceptance, right? So I'm going to go through each of these really quickly and just kind of say what they might look like, and just for you to recognize in yourself also, so you can get help and walk yourself through these different things, right? So denial and isolation. I got diagnosed and I said, okay, cool. What medication do you need me to take? I'll pop some pills and keep going. And instead of keep going, looking like dialing back some of my responsibilities, I pushed myself harder, as if I wanted to prove to myself that I really didn't have this disease and that it couldn't do anything to me, right? Oh, this is not going to switch anything up. I'm still Shanelle. I'm still the busybody Shanelle. So I totally went into this space of like, I'm just going to keep pushing through. I'm not going to tell anyone what I was going through. And a few months after being hospitalized, as I mentioned in the poem, I went back to school. Although everybody wanted me to stay back home, I was like, no, I'm going back to school. And no one knew the times I had developed pericarditis and it didn't quite go away. And the days where it really bothered me, I would walk from my class all the way to my dorm room so slow and so quietly and so still because it hurt so much, but I would never let anybody know what I was going through. And that was a really, really dark time for me to be dealing with all of those things that we just talked about by myself, right? So then we have anger. So after a while, I'm watching my friends, as they say, turning up, drinking, taking shots, hanging out. And I'm like, but I always took care of myself. Why me? How come I'm going through this? Why do I deserve to have a chronic illness when I'm actually doing what's right, right? So I was angry. I was so upset at the fact that I had to deal with all of these things. I had to think about all these things. I had to figure out how I was going to see my doctor. So that anger became a stage that I definitely was like really dealing with. Then we started the bargaining, and bargaining can look like to a higher power, to yourself, anything. It is literally like, so I'm going to be vegan. I'm going to be, you know what? I'm gonna try to give this up, and I'm going to give up my medication. I'm going to just go juices and berries. And that is literally, I know quite a few of us go through that part where it's like, I'm just going to give up everything. And that's how I'm going to figure it out. And then my lupus is going to disappear. Okay, I'm just gonna find these quick results. I'm Caribbean, so it's always some kind of bush, some kind of drink. Everybody's recommending to you. Everybody knows a cure from somewhere that they heard from somewhere back home on their island. And so I tried to do that part. And what did I do? In giving up all my medication and not letting my doctor know, I got really sick. So that bargaining didn't quite work. Then there's depression. That was a little harder for me to see because I know for me, and some of us might be type A's, a lot of times depression does not always look like someone crying in the corner. It is moving so much that you don't feel the heaviness that is on your shoulders. And so that depression is something that comes in, like all of these signs, all of these parts come and go. There's no like one linear way to get through grief. As you know, with any grief, it's an old life that you had that you no longer have looking the same way. I won't say that you don't have it, but it's not looking the same way. So the slide says, I'm exhausted from trying to be stronger than I feel. What does it feel like to know you have all of this weight and nobody knows, right? And yep, staying busy to not have to sit with the worries. Ooh, that is like my anthem. And there's something called functional depression that a lot of people go through, where you are able to do all the things, but you are definitely like sitting there, and if you catch a breath, you'll feel it. Right. And so I went through that, and I still sometimes go through that, being absolutely honest about that. Right. And so I want you to take a quick look at these different things. And thank you so much for everyone's vulnerability in the chat. I appreciate you sharing your stories with each other, because sometimes we do feel like we're alone. That isolation is real, and everybody doesn't always understand. But take a look at this list of things that can show you, maybe check if you are battling depression. You cannot diagnose yourself. Please talk to somebody important. Get a therapist, get a counselor, let your doctor know that you're having these things. But these are all different things that can lead to showing you that you might be battling depression with this, because that's very real, right? And so thank you, Rachel. Losing interest in your hobbies, and just going through these stages on a regular, knowing that this is something that you might go back to, you might get angry again. I get very angry when my lupus acts up, when I have moments where I forget I have it. It's like I'm living, and then I get achy, and I'm like, why am I achy? Oh, this dang lupus thing came back. It's just, it's never left, but it's just, there are times where it's just blaring and yelling at you. So thinking about that, so acceptance, I put a question mark there, because what does acceptance look like? There's a space where I had to kind of accept that this is the disease that I am going to be battling. This is what my life looks like. I know that maybe I might have been able to party till 5 a.m. and then go get breakfast with my friends all weekend. Right. I definitely watched some of my friends live these really, really, really fabulous lifestyles that don't require the level of planning that we have to plan when we want to do something. But I think acceptance was moving into a space where it's like, I know that I have this disease. This might just be something that I have to deal with. I might go into remission, I might not, right? What does my life have to look like moving forward? How do I accept where I am and think about what I can do, know what I can't do, and maybe modify what I've done, but really figure out what is it that I can do. And so me receiving my new life, grieving my old one, missing, the person that I actually was a touring artist and had to get off the road. I got sick while I was on the road in Montana. I'm from New York. That was of all of the places to get sick and be hospitalized. I was away from everyone, and realized the importance of healthcare. And I didn't have quality healthcare back then. So it's like, wow, what does my new life have to look like? Why is my body acting 90 years old when I'm this age? Why am I sitting here like, okay, I can't do this because my knees hurt. My friends got these fabulous heels on. And I know that if I do decide to wear heels, I better bring some flats, and I might just take a picture in those heels and put those flats right on. But what does it mean to do that? That I have lupus, but lupus does not have me becomes that. And so living while living with lupus began to look like this. Learning how to listen to my body. Now, our bodies are, when you think about it, as annoying as I can be at this wonderful body that I am blessed with, right? That God has blessed all of us with a body, and we are here and we are alive, right? Learning how to listen to it was a whole other story. And for me, with lupus, while there are definitely some anomalies, there are times I've seen my body say, Shanelle, you're going to be sick tomorrow if you don't sit down. And I have ignored it. There are times where I have pushed and pushed. There are times where I have not necessarily taken the naps that I needed because I wanted to have a good time. And sometimes it is about discerning whether this is a time that I push and this is a time when I pull back. But learning how to listen to your body. What are the symptoms that your body alerts you with to let you know that a flare is coming, or to let you know that you might need to sit your behind down and take the day off, or maybe you need to be able to negotiate a schedule that might fit a nap in, or start a day late, a little bit later, because you know you're going to stay out late. Like, learning how to listen to your body is like a key for being able to figure that out. And also planning ahead and scheduling and structuring everything. I was not. Okay, I was a procrastinator. I was someone that never, ever, ever had a schedule. I like to just float. I live that New York City lifestyle where you tumble into everything. But having lupus meant, if I know I'm going to brunch with my friends, I know that the night before I need to not party all night, or work late, or do that brunch the day that right after a really long work day. So you have to plan and schedule and structure everything. My friends, I eventually had to have the conversation with them. I said, these are the parameters that I need to be able to be out with you all. Like, I want to come out, but we got to plan it a little bit more in advance. Okay. So whose birthday is it? Okay. What are we doing for the birthday? Okay. So the party starts at 7. All right. So let me get my nap in about 3 p.m. and really just rest up and take care of myself first so that I can enjoy the time. And also, if I need to leave early, if I know that my body is not going to last past midnight, if I am a pumpkin, right? Hey, I have to make sure that I have the resources and let somebody know that I need to leave early. So maybe I drive instead of driving with everybody else. Maybe I set aside a little change for an Uber on the way back. Planning ahead and structuring everything is so important. And yes, Rachel, if you have good friends, they will be there and they will help you. Anyone that's like, oh, well, forget your disease, you just don't want to, I have to question how much they love me as a friend, right? So you couldn't lose. I'm trying to like add the chat, and it's like we're having a conversation. You lost friends because you couldn't travel after making plans. That's a real thing. And sometimes it is, we do go through cycles where I learned who my friends were, upon how they dealt with or handled my disease. And so maybe some friends, it's like, I see you when I see you, but my ride or die, my good core friends were able to understand when I said no, that it wasn't a personal attack, that it wasn't, that I didn't care about them. And learning to say no was hard for me. Type A, doing everything, everyone asking and always being available. That was very, very hard for me to learn. And yeah, no, I think that it's really sad that we have to go through these things with folk that don't understand. But at the end of the day, like I said in my poem, if I don't take care of me, how can I expect others to? And I have to make sure that maybe it's, I can do a little bit of that, but I can't do the whole project. Maybe it is, I'm sorry, I'm really having a rough week. This week is actually not a good week for me physically, and letting people know that, and that's the other side of it. And I'm so happy to hear that, Rachel, that you were able to gain a even better and closer friend, right? And so I have a few minutes left and I want to keep doing it. So the other sides of it is helping your medications through diet and exercise. Now, I am not talking diet as in Atkins and sitting here and doing three juices for a week. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just I learned that the things that made my lupus feel better were the things that everybody should be doing. Drinking a lot of water. Exercise does not mean I need to necessarily be picking up 300-pound weights, but movement. Stiff joints, unmoved joints ache even more. So a lack of mobility actually makes your joints more achy. So there are definitely modifications. If you go on, I love me some the School of YouTube is very helpful, but going on YouTube and looking up modified yoga, looking up, it sounds crazy because you talked about like our bodies feeling older than they are, but like there's golden Zumba, which is Zumba that has low impact. You can look for those things. Swimming is a great exercise for joint pain. And sometimes it's not necessarily that you're full on swimming, just being able to have some light resistance happening there. And diet, I always say I'm not a dietitian, but definitely speak to one on what might be best for your body. But the closer something is to its original state is usually the healthier, the more nutrients there. So the closer that apple is to being on that tree, the more nutrients there are. In an apple pie, we know that it's not, nutrients is gone, but that's sugar, right? But we know that an apple coming off a tree is so important, right? So making sure that we have a balanced diet, that's helpful. And lastly, this is the thing that I want everybody, please do, discover new things that make you happy. Maybe, and I have a friend of mine, she was a track star. She was on her way to the Olympics, track star, and developed lupus, and found a passion for medicine and learning more about her lupus, right? And found a passion for that and moved into being a doctor, a physician's assistant, excuse me. And that took a long time for her to do. But it was something else that she's like, I feel good. I don't have to jump around. I don't have to move around. I can read. It's a lot of work, but that was something that made her happy. Me, I love to dance. And that was something I did in college and I really enjoyed it, but I knew that the impact was not going to work for me. So I discovered poetry and creative writing, and that ended up being my passion. And so when you're dealing with doctors, and I'm wrapping up because I want to have some time for questions. And yay, grandparents be loving on you. Yes, I love grandparents. Dealing with doctors, first things first. And this is something that is as you're grieving, the people that are around you, it's important to make sure your support is your support. Okay, make them do their job. If you have questions, ask them. They are literally there. That's what they are there for. And if they are not doing that, definitely get a second opinion. Consider maybe that might not be the right fit for you. Doctors are like relationships. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes it's just a matter of communication issues and figuring it out. So that's one thing. Make sure you are taking notes. If they are giving you guidance around different things, if they're telling you that this is what it is, bring a notebook, write notes. And then also write notes on what you are going through, what is going on with you. If you feel like in the mornings you're always achy, write that down, because sometimes when we go to the doctor, I don't remember what I was feeling on Monday. I'm only thinking about how my body's feeling right there. And it never, ever acts up when you're at the doctor, right? You will have all the pain and go to the doctor and it'll be perfectly fine. So make sure you're writing really good notes. Connect them, because sometimes the doctors don't all connect with each other and talk to each other. So if you have multiple doctors, and know they're supposed to do this themselves, but at the end of the day, it's my body and I got to make sure I'm okay. So if I have to do that little connecting the dots, I'm going to. And lastly, work with them. If you are deciding that you want to change something or try something holistic, you need to let them know, even if they don't agree, just so that they're aware of all of the things that are going on, so that you're okay. And consider various options. So sometimes doctors do have ideas of things that might be good. I don't tell everyone what to do, but I did a clinical trial and it ended up being really, really good for me. So just being mindful and considerate that a doctor might actually have some other options outside of what we might feel comfortable with or might not know about. I won't say comfortable with, that we might not know about. I want to leave you with this quote: be not afraid of life. Believe that life is worth living, and your belief will help create that fact. Finding the things that bring you joy, finding the things that are beautiful in your life and really holding on to them doesn't erase the pain, doesn't erase the frustration, but it definitely helps you try to find the thing that will keep you going. That it sounds so, I know positive thinking it sometimes feels very fluffy, right? But I do want to say that just on a real, holding on to only what is wrong is only going to help you see what's wrong. And just having a little bit of hope that even though there's many downs, there's always a up. There's always a up. And even if in the moment you don't see it. And I'm a testament to that. And And so who am I now? I am someone that still likes to get dressed up. I put those heels on. It was wonderful for the 5 minutes it was on. Took this picture of my friend who's also named Shanelle. I love chocolate chip cookies and I love Stranger Things. These are all things that I do. These are my comforts when I will get dressed up in my house by myself just because it makes me feel good. So those are things that bring me joy. And I'm also still doing doing a lot of the things that I care about. I'm still a performer. I run a nonprofit that works with youth poets, and we run the Youth Poet Laureate program. So Amanda Gorman's her. I also run a podcast with a friend of mine, Ayana Dookie, called the Hydroxychloroquines, where we just talk about what it's like to live with lupus and have a good time. I recently got my master's, and that was a slow thing that happened. And I'm addicted to Peloton. That's another low impact workout that you can do. But I want you to find your thing. I want you to find whatever means a lot to you. And I want you to continue still believing that you can still accomplish amazing things while living with this disease, recognizing all of the grief, but recognizing also the joy that can happen on a day-to-day basis. And with that said, I am going to open the floor for any questions.